annual meeting that Christ Church Wayside is having later this morning, and in anticipation of your annual meeting, which I think is 2 weeks hence, am I correct? Where's Eric? When is the annual meeting? February the 1st. February the 1st. We're going to start this morning with a story. It's a story about caring for a tree. A young pastor tells how he had an old tree in his yard that was sick. It had leafed out poorly at the top for now several years. So, as he writes, I began to ask around for someone who could help with this tree. One suggestion was a botanist, a person who was associated with the science department of a nearby university. The other was simply a man named Churchill, who lived in a small village in the opposite direction. The botanist was described as extremely competent, but tending to be a little expensive. Churchill was pictured as less expensive, but something of a character. I have the sense, continues this young pastor, that people tended to prefer Churchill. But since I was in the midst of earning a graduate degree at the time, I decided that I would call the botanist first. This person came one afternoon on the way home from the university for a, quote, consultation. He gazed quietly at my sick tree. Yes, he said, definitely disease. Obviously, the result of an infestation of insects that had carried the disease to the top of the tree, where the leaves were stunted and falling off. There was hope, however, this person said, that this tree could be saved. He knew of one chemical that would kill off the bugs, and another that would arrest the progress of the disease. It would take several treatments, and the cost would be $100 per treatment, about $400, he estimated, in all. It all would depend on how this tree responded. He offered no guarantee, and said that the treatment should be started without delay. He seemed a little annoyed when I said that I thought I'd like a second opinion, and he especially was a little nervous when I mentioned Churchill. But I persisted. Churchill came 8:30 the next morning. Man in his late 50s, weather-beaten and strong. Churchill's my name, he said as he put out his hand of greeting. This your tree? I nodded. He stood there for a while, looked at the tree from several angles. Then he turned to me and he asked a question for which I was totally unprepared. Do you love your tree? Of course, I said. But I was painfully aware that my answer could not hide and had not hidden the fact that I was very much caught off guard. Churchill walked back to his truck, came back with a pair of climbing spurs strapped to his heavy boots. Then he proceeded to climb all the way to the top of this tree, up to where the leaves were thin, much higher than my Victorian house. I moved around to kind of dodge the dead pieces as they were falling off the tree Soon he was back on the ground. Tree's got problems, he said. When did lightning strike it? I had no idea when lightning had struck. Well, it did, he said. And it's a good thing that that tree was there when it did, because if it wasn't, the lightning would probably have hit your house and burned it to the ground. That tree has done you a lot more good than you realize. Anyhow, tree's got a big wound since it was hit, and the life's been running out of it. Leaves are stunted because the good strength they need is running out of the wound. I can dress the wound, and then the tree heals. The good strength will get back to the upper branches. We need to take out a few branches because this tree is weak, can't support that much growth. But doesn't need that many branches anyhow. We talked about the bugs, how they go away when the tree healed. Then about the need to feed the tree a bit with some fertilizer. I was convinced that Churchill could help my tree. But I felt a little nervous about the price. Finally, I asked. Churchill looked at my house, then he looked at me, and then came another one of those questions. You make much money? No, I said. I'm a pastor. Can you afford $90? I said I could. And asked him when he could do the work. You got $90 now? I said I did. Then we'll do the work right now, he said. He finished before lunchtime. I gave him $90 cash, never saw him again. The tree recovered exactly the way he said it would. The bugs went away. Everything was wonderful. So now let's look back at the story for a moment. Consider, if you will, for a moment, Churchill's first question. Do you love your tree? Christ Church is an old church with a marvelous history. Old churches are like old trees. They need the care of others who have come before us, and they need the care of you who are now the church today. And more important, churches need the care of the good life inside, if you will. They need people who are willing to pitch in and help. They need volunteers, plenty of them. They need people who are open to new ideas. People who are willing to accept, try new things, learn and grow. They need people who are committed to the ways of our Lord. Need people who follow our Lord into the world for the work of redeeming, reconciling, reaching out, if you will. They need people to heal, to renew, to reach out, to care. The more we love God and love the church and care about one another, the more readily the power of God can move and make its way among us. Do you love your church? A question at the foundation of God's work among us, always, for all time. done you a lot more good than you realized. This church has done a lot more good than we realize. Were it not for Christ's church in this community, how many people through our history might have strayed into a wasted life? How many people have our various programs and ministries touched? Food, friendship, care. How much support and hope have we given to one another? Times of stress, challenge, trouble. How, without regular worship, might we have fallen into the secular world which is all around us, a world of aggressiveness, materialism, me first. The work God is doing among us is brought near when we say, this church has done a lot more good than we realize. Another of those questions. Can you afford $90? This amount was enough to demonstrate a young man's love for his tree. But it didn't do him in. I think that little exchange has a lot to say about giving to the church. We are fortunate here at Christ Church. Overhead costs appear to be reasonably well managed. People are obviously generous. It's a beautiful church. But we must never forget that the church must always have a constant stream of generous giving if it's going to be strong and effective. So, if we give our $90, so to speak, enough to demonstrate our devotion, our commitment, our support, our loyalty, it will be enough to do what's needed. The work of God in the life we share will continue near and strong. Christ Church has been here for a long time. It's been here because people have loved it, because it's done a lot more good than people realize, because people have given, if you will, their $90. Devotion, witness, generosity. With these, the work of God will continue to be alive and known among us and in the community here as it has been in the past. And as it now will be becoming, your congregation, you now, working together with your new rector, Tim Johnson. And it will be effective for all of us and a witness to God's presence and love among us for years to come.
Saluda